G'day and welcome to episode 8 of Home Loan Hacks. G'day Shane.
G'day, Martin.
And this is also the monthly update, so we'll kick straight into that. And then we've got a very exciting special guest coming up on the show today too, which is actually Shane Mott on performance, leadership and some of his cricketing exploits and some of his mortgage exploits. So yeah, some great stuff there. So the update of the month, and we're looking forward to that, absolutely. That'd be great. And thanks, Shane, for volunteering and, well, sort of volunteering too.
Yeah.
So the update, things have sort of steadied down a little bit. We've got CoreLogic telling us that in Sydney last month, prices dropped by 0.9. So that's 2 months of very small drops after 12 months of very good rises, like around 12%. No significant changes in the mortgage market. Anything you can think of hot this month, Shane?
Much the same, really. A little bit slower, I think. Banks are struggling more and more as time goes on, it feels. But
yeah, so what do you put that down to, like particularly the majors, so top 5 banks, and you want to comment on that?
Yeah, well, we were sort of talking about it the other day, weren't we, in terms of maybe some people sort of heading to safety in the bigger banks, maybe a bit more confidence in their funding or something like that. I'm not too certain, but that could be a factor.
Yeah, so the major lenders are in high volume. They've also got a lot of staff working from home, and some of their overseas or interstate facilities have been reduced. I know a mortgage processing centre in the Philippines that a lot of mortgage brokers in loan market use has closed. So
in Melbourne too, I suppose. So
yeah, in Melbourne, that's tough, and we feel for people in Victoria and are thinking of you and the impact at the moment. It's just terrible what we see on the news, and yeah, we wish you strength and improvement soon. Anything else this month, Shane? The slow lenders has been a big theme, like 3 weeks, 4 weeks for an approval at major lenders, pre-approvals being discouraged by major lenders, real tricks in getting through the process quick enough with those lenders, and sometimes we can't avoid it on credit policy.
I think the other thing that's noteworthy, though, is people are still very keen to take action to buy. A lot of inquiries on what can I do still, and pre-approvals in terms of first home buyers getting ready.
Yep.
So there's still a lot of that around, isn't there?
That's amazing. Our tempo and inquiry has been really high. So 2 and 3 months ago, it was primarily refinance work, and the volume of the sales in the market was down. Right now, all aspects of inquiry is very strong. So particularly first home buyers quite confident. Next home, got a lot of people talking about, would I sell now to buy up? Not much on the investor side. And that's probably the key themes for the month. The interest rates at the moment, the Reserve Bank did not move rates. The Reserve Bank governor is commenting he doesn't see a change for some time, perhaps a year, 18 months. Shane, give or take 2 and 3 year fixed rates versus variable rates for homes right now?
Yeah, so 2 and 3 years around about 2.3%. Some a little higher, some a little lower. Variable sort of 2.9-ish.
Yeah.
So that's for owner occupied. Yeah, so a bit of a difference still in fixed and variable. That hasn't really changed.
Yeah, so it's interesting. The fixed rates are around 0.5, 0.6 lower than the variable rates. And best variable rates, there's quite a few under 2.6. So Macquarie, ING, who else has got an under 2.6%?
A couple sort of between 2.6 and 2.7.
Yeah, quite a lot. So if your home loan is off the mark, worth a thought. If you're 0.3 off the mark on a $600,000 loan, that's nearly $2,000 a year. So quite substantial savings that might be made by reviewing that. All right, I think that's probably great for the moment for the monthly update, and all the best. We'll move on to the next section. Well, there we are in the next section. So what I'm keen to talk about today, Shane, is the process of lodging a loan. I'm sure people are really excited about this topic. You think?
Oh, I think so. This will be our highest hit, I think.
Yeah.
Highest hit topic.
So it's not about the house, it's about the loan? No.
That's it.
So, of course, it's about your goal. It's about your dream is the big game. So about getting to the goal of buying your home, buying your property, or refinancing for a better deal. But we thought it'd be handy to talk about the broad stages, and we're always seeking to engage someone with their level of interest and their level of action, and therefore what tempo we might go at. So the first part would obviously be an inquiry or a reinitiation of a conversation where we'd have a chat about what they're looking to do, and then we'd ask them to get some documents for us. And how long would it take to put a loan together, Shane? So that's sort of your expertise in putting everything together and lodging with the bank might take roughly how long?
Oh, about a day's worth of work probably in terms to put it all together and get it prepared to send to the bank.
Yep.
A lot of the work obviously is just getting the documentation up front, and once we have all that, it's about a day from there. Yeah.
And at that time, what are you looking for from the lender, or what sort of any other activities might be happening that we're doing or the client might be doing around lodgement time?
Oh, in terms of it making offers, or do you mean
maybe just the loan first? Yeah.
Not sure.
That's okay. So we're looking to see the lender's got it. We're looking to see that it's all complete, and the documents are all complete and received. We're updating the client that that's done. So sort of routine that we are pretty high tempo at that stage to inform the client because they're pretty keen to know what's going on, obviously. And then we're seeking or looking for either a pre-approval or a conditional approval. So if it's an actual property that they're looking at and they're buying for a certain property, we're looking for, hey, your loan's conditionally approved, subject to anything. So what are the sort of things the bank might be asking for at that conditional approval stage?
Yeah, I mean, it's common that the bank on first look of everything might have a few questions. It might be just, can you confirm that transfer there, what that was? Or they might just ask for one more statement of something. It's not uncommon to just for the assessor to call us and ask a couple of questions that often we can answer straight up. But in terms of a conditional sort of a pre-approval, for instance, when you getting pre-approved, obviously it's going to be subject to a suitable property evaluation. So an exchange contract of sale as well. So
okay, so there's a bit to come yet, but the big picture is, how did the bank find it in general? And even when it's perfectly packaged and beautifully presented, banks are very fussy at the moment with the level of detail they're scrutinising accounts and wanting to know information. So the first catch at the bank might be anything from very quick, like 1 day, 2 days, out to, like we said before, major lenders might be like 3 weeks right now or 4 weeks. So we see speed as incredibly important, and that's a part of the consideration is how's your bank going versus other options? What are the product needs and what are the speed needs to be able to buy your property or do what you're trying to achieve?
Yeah, most lenders, when we first submit an application, will do what's called a pre-assessment check. So they'll check basically to make sure all the documents that an assessor would need are on the application. Once that passes through that, it goes into the queue for the assessment. So that normally happens in the first day or two, pushes through to the assessment queue, and then it just depends on what bank you're at, how long that sort of wait in that queue might be. So that ranges anywhere from a day to 4 or 5 weeks or plus.
Yeah. So we're obviously preferring fast. We're fully informing the client, and we see all the turnaround time, so it's no surprise. And then we're getting that first feedback from the lender, and often at that stage we get good amount of information we can tell the customer. So maybe it's the assessor we've spoken to, and we can therefore tell the customer what the assessor thought. And as we provide the supplementary items, we then get more certainty. Now, some lenders will do a fully assessed pre-approval, which we love, which therefore the customer has strong support, strong feedback that the lender will support them, subject only to finding a suitable property. What proportion of lenders, Shane, would fully assess a pre-approval versus would do an electronic version, so roughly?
Yeah, I'd say about half. It's probably reducing. I think due to the turnaround times blowing out, a lot of lenders are sort of thinking, well, we want to do less and less pre-approvals because, only a certain number of pre-approvals go through. I'd probably say half, but I'm curious to see how that actually changes going forward as assessment times seem to be pushing out a bit.
So in a tough lending environment, we think it's very important to get strong certainty from the lender. We've had some recently where we've lodged the loan and they've changed their policy and not told us. So we can often get that turned around and get it fully assessed. The other thing that might or might not be needed is evaluation. So some lenders will use an automated valuation where they say, look, a property of that size in that suburb at that address, we can see what it last sold for. We can see what is selling around it. We accept that if it's an on-market transaction, like it's been exchanged through an agent with no insiders, like one of the agent's staff buying it, or no family involvement or no parties outside the state. So if there is extra steps, and if the assessor does need to escalate it, it may have to go into more senior assessment like the credit team. Now, I don't want this all to sound like mumbo jumbo, and every lender is a bit different. I guess all I'm really seeking to transmit at this time is we don't just click our fingers and have the approval happen. And we're very conscious also of working within the parameters of getting unconditional approval during the cool-off in New South Wales. Anyway, that's what we'll do a different session on, but to do it fast enough to keep up with the transaction and keep the customer informed of what's going on. And so at that stage, when everything's okay, when the bank's happy, they give the full approval, and that's great because then you have the confidence that the lender will loan to you. After the full approval, can be straight away or a week or two, they'll issue the formal loan agreements. So also the official loan agreements, which is all the fine print of what you're signing up to with the bank. And then when that's back and the paperwork's tidied, etc., they're ready to do the settlement. So that's probably the big picture of anything else you could...
I guess it's varied between banks too now, isn't it, with the loan documents? Some are electronic, some are still paper-based mailed out. So some we can print for the client, but every lender's very different still with that. But it shouldn't be too long and we'll be able to do full electronic documentation. So
from start to finish.
Let's hope that's coming along quicker. Yeah.
Yeah, we love it. So that's probably a little bit of something different for this month, and I hope it hasn't been too much mumbo jumbo. I hope it also does transmit we're very proud of what we do and our knowledge of the many lenders. And any broker or banker that you would use, I would encourage you to use someone who is extraordinarily familiar with a multi-lender platform and how to get the job done for you, because we hear so many unfortunate stories. Not that we would want to bag the competition, would we, Shane?
No,
of course we wouldn't. Well, that's it for the monthly session. Hope you've enjoyed this little insight into what happens through the process of a loan. Which brings us on to the next session, which is our special guest. We haven't actually moved for those of you watching the full podcast. So a big welcome and thanks so much, Shane Mott. And very much keen to hear a little about elite performance. So a very brief, my take introduction is Shane's a cracking bloke. Well, everyone who knows him knows that.
Thanks, Martin.
We'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
But young family in the Hawkesbury area, and for many years was a professional cricketer and also a science teacher and maths teacher. And I'm interested in delving first into a bit of that. So I wonder, could you tell us a little bit of your experiences as a professional cricketer?
Yeah, okay. I was semi-professional, I sort of say. I wouldn't say I was at my full-time job for any period of time, but I played at a reasonable level. So I grew up playing for Pitt Town. I'll give them a plug in the local Hawkesbury district, and then on to play for Hawkesbury in sort of district and grade cricket in the Sydney first grade competition. So I was lucky enough to as an opening bowler. So I'm an opening bowler who likes to bat and have a bit of a slog, I suppose. So I was lucky enough to play New South Wales under-17s and Australian under-17s. So I went down to Melbourne for that carnival when I was 17 and played at the MCG. That was a bit of fun.
Some of the players that you played with at that time, like your local Hawkesbury lot or others you played with?
Yeah, well, Stephen O'Keefe, who I played with at Hawkesbury, was also in that side, and Peter Forrest, who both played for Australia. And against that particular carnival was pretty good sort of cohort of players. It had Peter Siddle, Callum Ferguson, Tim Payne, Australian captain. So, it was a good year of players, and we won that tournament. We played against Callum Ferguson at the final at the MCG. So,
cracking.
A bit of fun. Didn't get him out. Didn't get a wicket that day, but must have bowled all right because got picked in the Australian under-17
That's fantastic
squad to train in Adelaide for a week. So that was fun as well.
Yeah, what a wonderful achievement.
Yeah.
And then you were first grade with Hawkesbury for a number of years?
Yeah, I think about 13 seasons, I think it was, in the Sydney comp. So
so that's the top comp in Sydney that feeds to the Sheffield Shield side, which is very prestigious.
Yeah.
And you took a few wickets there?
Yeah, I had a pretty good run. There was probably a 3-year period that was my best sort of time, I suppose, that I took quite a few wickets. But yeah, did pretty well.
Go on, tell us how many. 50, 60?
About 50 a year for 3 years. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So that was a good period for me. Yeah.
Which is the highest, the second highest, and the third highest in the Hawkesbury cricket?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, and the bowling award is called the Shane Mott Award.
Yeah,
is that
thanks,
right?
Martin, for the plug.
I know Shane's not going to plug himself. Tell us a little bit about playing overseas.
Yeah, so as is pretty common for first grade players in Sydney, in winter, it's common to go over and play as an overseas player in the UK. So I had 3 summers in the UK. I played for a team called Skulls in the Huddersfield competition in sort of their league cricket, which we won the league there, which was good. So that was a good experience to be sort of an overseas player in a league cricket where they get right into it over there. That was a great experience. I played in Dublin the next year for a team in Dublin, and the final year I went over, I played for a team in Wales. So and while playing in Wales, was lucky enough to play a bit of county cricket for the Netherlands in the county competition, their one-day comp. So,
Yeah, great.
yeah.
And the highlight of those overseas experiences?
Oh, I'd have to say, from a performance point of view, would have been playing for the Netherlands in the county comp. So I got to play. I debuted at Headingley and scored 50, so that was a bit of a thrill. Played at Lords against Middlesex. Yeah. So I took 2 wickets at Lords, so that was probably a bit of a highlight, I would say.
Yeah, how good's that?
Yeah. I look back very, very fondly on those sort of things. Yeah, very lucky.
And you're an elite performer in many regards. You're a fabulous athlete and very dedicated and very professional in your approach. Talk to us a bit about like elite performance in athletes and what defines the best of what you've seen.
Yeah, sure. I think, I've been, as I say, lucky enough to play with some really good players that played at that next level and against those sort of players. And I think one of the things that stood out to me was the standards that they set for themselves sort of across all aspects, whether it's nutrition, training, just their preparation, even the way they sort of prepare their equipment. Whatever it is, every sort of category, they tend to have high standards. And they're very, I think they're very accountable to themselves. They're very much, they're not blaming others when things go wrong. They're very self-evaluating and sort of, very accountable to themselves.
And what sort of sacrifices are the best making? Like what sort of things just pushes that next level?
Yeah, I think it's a priority to them, that goal of whether it's playing for Australia, Shield cricket, whatever it might be, that's a high priority. So that's their focus. That's something I guess they really want it. So it's sort of like in anything, whether it's business or sport or whatever, I think to achieve anything, you really have to want it. And that's something I saw in the players that sort of went on to play for Australia and or New South Wales and Australia. It was something they really wanted, and they sort of it was never an option not to strive hard for that, I suppose. Yeah.
I guess on the converse, the inhibitors, like people that had been performing that fell apart or people that just didn't quite make it, what did you see in character traits there? Yeah,
I think again that I spoke about the standards that those guys set. Well, it's that combined with their self-belief. They really have a real. It borders on arrogance a little bit, I say sometimes, and I think we use that word as a bad word sometimes, but it's that real high level belief in what they can do, and I think an inhibitor would be just to not have that belief in yourself. So I remember even in my own bowling, sort of in the first grade sort of circle in Sydney, it wasn't until I'd taken a lot of wickets that I sort of started to think, oh, you know what, I actually believe I could play the next level. And I look back at that and think, oh, I should have believed a bit sooner. And I think that's what those players that are successful, and it's probably similar in any sport, they have that belief from the start, and that really helps them, I think, to if they've got that focus and that passion, that belief, they get there.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool. And you've had some of your cohort that have moved states for opportunity.
Yep.
So that's, I guess, linked to...
It's linked to having it as a priority, I think. So it was kind of like get an opportunity and go. And that was something I noticed in all the guys that made it, I suppose you'd say.
John Hastings,
they just went
John
for it.
Hastings is a cricketing colleague and a friend of yours who has moved to 2 or 3 times.
Oh, early on to Victoria. So he was sort of probably behind 1 or 2 all-rounders in New South Wales, and he moved down to Victoria when got an opportunity.
Yeah.
And it paid dividends for him. So he was, a few years later playing for Australia. So, yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
And we touched on the concept of leadership the other day. And would you want to please comment on what you've seen in some leaders or what you've really admired or just found helped you with your performance?
Yep.
And also your take on leadership and your style of leadership and how you like to be in the team environment.
Yeah, sure. So I think being a bowler, you're really looking for your captain or your leader to have belief in you. And you know when someone does or someone doesn't, and you sort of can see it in their body language, in the way they speak. When someone really believes in you, I think it brings out the best in you. And it's like believing in yourself to a point. If your leader believes in you, you sort of feel like it lifts you a bit. And I think that's what I felt the best leaders in a sporting sense, particularly in cricket, because every sport's very different in terms of what it is to be a leader. I think it's hugely important in cricket. But the thing that I felt was most important was for them to believe in you. And when they throw you the ball, to know they're giving you the ball because they believe you can do the job. And that's probably a big ticket item. But not just the captain. I mean, that's part of being a leader, I feel, in a team is you have 4, 5, 6 senior players maybe that are all leaders and all have that ability to encourage, the younger players or whoever it might be to go together, I suppose. So, I don't think being a leader is always about being the captain, just leading by example, even getting in there and working hard for your teammates, stuff like that. I think, that's sort of my view on leadership, I suppose.
And it's interesting that you've had that sort of group leadership philosophy for a long time, and it's come into sports teams more recently, where they've had sort of formal leadership groups.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about rugby league, but in Aussie rules, I've only seen it in the last few years, where they've recognised that having zone players or types of players or just senior players that are kind of see themselves as a leader, even though they didn't get the captaincy or the vice captaincy. So it's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
It's like a participative leadership of having good influences around the team. And is there anything else in the cricketing world you'd like to chat about? Because I want to ask you a couple of questions in the mortgage world, but...
Nah, that's about it. I think,
You were in the Thunder train-on squad. I don't know if we mentioned that.
Had a season.
Played New South Wales second 11?
Yeah, played four second 11 games for New South Wales. Didn't quite. I probably was a bit of a goal to play first-class cricket for New South Wales, which I didn't quite get there. But, no regrets.
Yeah, fabulous. And congratulations on a sterling career.
Yeah, thanks.
And if you wiki Shane Mott or look him up, you'll find the odd thing kicking around. That's very good. Yeah. And to play at Lords, how good's that?
Oh, yeah, that was a thrill. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I guess if I can move into your current role in the mortgage space.
Yep.
What's your favourite thing about what type of customers you like to help?
Yeah, first home buyer. And I think we were talking about it the other day, weren't we? Sometimes when you get a difficult loan that it could go either way. When you reach that approval moment and you sort of are able to pass that news on to, some first home buyers that you share that little bit of the dream and the journey with them. Yeah. You feel part of a big team. You feel you've achieved a collective goal, I suppose, and just get to share that little moment a little bit. I think sometimes the easier loans don't quite actually give you that thrill sometimes, but they're all good. But that's what I would say is probably the best ones are the ones that can get a little bit tight, and then it just means a bit more. Yeah,
it is pretty amazing, the first home buyers to help, and I guess also those that are appreciative.
Yeah, definitely.
Is there anything that stands out? You don't have to give a name, but any one that stands out or any couple that stand out? We've had a couple that came pretty close to not getting approved, but we sort of kicked and screamed and scraped around. And
I think too, when the ones that are a little bit more tricky, you sort of can look back on it and think, would another broker have got that one approved in time or at all?
Yeah.
And you tend to take a sense of satisfaction in what you've done because you know exactly what you've done. Sometimes the customers don't know exactly what you've done to a point, but when you can sit back and look at it and think, we got that done. It may not have got done elsewhere, and look how happy they are, and look how appreciative they are. That's the where the satisfaction comes in, I think. Yeah.
It's sometimes a bit toey. I've got a saying with customers, I'll tell them when to worry, and I'm not going to tell you when to worry.
Yeah.
And we have had a few near-run things. And dealing with banks.
Yep.
Do you want to comment on that? Like, people on the outside would probably have no idea. Like, the banks are our lending partners, all right, and we have very good relationships. But what are some of the challenges put in your way, and how do you work through that?
Yeah, I think normally when we actually get to talk to an assessor, they're just like us, aren't they? They're just trying to find a solution, and they tend to work really well with us. Sometimes it can just get a little bit fiddly or fussy when we don't have that direct contact, and we might sort of get asked for one more thing that we've already provided, or and then sometimes just not being able to get that contact with the assessor or with the person that's got the file can really, that gets a little bit frustrating because you can't sort of get to where you need to get to because we just want to fix the problem, and you might be talking to someone who's not the file owner, and they're just sort of relaying information, and you're just sort of getting put back another day. So I think you just got to be a little bit just got to keep pushing them, don't you? And just sort of keep nudging and getting to the right person, and then getting stuff done, I suppose.
It's a huge strength of yours. We had a chuckle the last couple of days, topics that we weren't quite sure who or what or how something would happen, but we sort of you're nudging the solicitor and one part of the bank and another part of the bank, then we send something in, then we send in something somewhere else, and suddenly the problem seems solved. Someone's woken up and got it done. Not apparent who should have done it or who knew.
Yeah, if you kick enough bins, one will open up.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
Yeah.
And customer service. So you've won an award for state customer service, which congratulations. We're very, very proud of the work you do.
Yep.
Your view on the customer and helping the customer.
Yeah, and I think the role that I'm in now, I was sort of drawn to in terms of because I was, as you know, a broker on my own for a little while, and then I think what drew me to working in this role as part of a small team was that sort of team and service type sort of focus. So in terms of the customer, I feel I've got that. I do have that sort of passion to help people, to problem solve, and to do that as part of a team rather than being the only sort of wheel in the cog, I suppose. I just have always enjoyed helping people and solving problems, and I think that's why I like what I do. Yeah.
And you're good at it, and I want to publicly say how proud of Shane I am, and how important he is to me here, and how everyone and all of our clients, everyone sort of say, "Oh, well, thanks, Martin," and but Shane was amazing. No, it's not quite. No, but it's a team performance, and but Shane is a huge part of that, and we bounce deals and bounce ideas and bounce scenarios all day, every day. What bank? What solution? how do we help that person? And it's such a fun environment.
I think it's like anything too, working with a team in that environment. Like, you know, we have one of those tight approvals that gets up and you sort of, we're used to high five. Now we just sort of, you know, we don't get that close, but in the current environment. But just sharing.
I've got a little button.
Yeah.
we've got a "that was easy" button. It makes noise and stuff.
Yeah. But yeah, just sharing it with other people, I think is enjoyable. Yeah. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, I think that's probably great for today, and what a great insight, and what an amazing human. So pleased to work with you, and so enjoyable to have you in the team. It gives me such confidence and trust and faith that you're looking after stuff, and long may it rain. And thanks so much for our special guest today, Shane Mott.
Hope I didn't bore you too much.
No, that was great. Fantastic. Cheers. Well, the rant of the month, Shane. They've been waiting, and here it comes. I got off the phone just before we were filming to one of our bank reps, and it was a curious conversation. And the rant is about banks that have performance targets to give you good turnaround times, even when they're not going any good. So it was a really curious conversation. Let's just say with a top 5 bank in Australia. And the rep brings me up and he says, "Martin, I've got dots on the left and I haven't got dots on the right. I meant to mention that to you the other day." And I thought, okay, John, not his real name. "Tell me what that means." And he said, "Well, going to need a couple of settlements from you to keep you at the elite category as a broker," which kind of surprises me because the turnaround times are the same for standard broker or elite broker or whatever they call it. I won't say elite, but top performance, faster turnarounds. It was actually a recommendation of the Royal Commission not to have performance-based elitism in mortgage broker support. So it kind of shocked me a little bit. I didn't actually know. I thought the metrics were other things like customer service performance and other performance. I didn't know there was a lodgement or settlement metric. But the funny thing is they're one of those banks that right now, all of the major lenders are struggling terribly with performance. So we've just recently had a client of that bank who we said, "Jack," not his real name, "we can't go to XYZ Bank, which is your bank, who you're happy with, because they can't get a loan approved inside the turnaround times to meet your unconditional approval, to meet your cool-off time. So here's some options to show you which don't include your bank." And I'm sorry, because we always include the client's current bank. So it is a very bizarre situation that performance targets to get better speed in assessment can exist, and also that they can exist when the lender themselves is not providing performance. So there you go. How many banks in the top 5 would have that, Shane? That's one that we talked to today.
Have the categories?
Yeah, they used to all have them. I can't think of any others. No, there's one. There's one, two.
There's only one that doesn't, I believe, in the top 4.
Okay, interesting.
Of some form, yeah.
Yeah, so it's kind of common sense that someone is supporting the bank a lot, but we want to do a loan based on the best interest of the customer. So our spread of lending is quite wide. We have, last time I looked at it, 17% was the biggest number of any volume of any lender in the past financial year. So we have 3 or 4 lenders in the sort of 10 to 17% and lots in the 5 to 10%. So we rework the scenario every time. So to have someone rewarded for volume, so send us lots of deals, you get faster speed in your assessment. That's my rant this month. Not happy about it. Don't like it, and didn't like the phone call at all today when I said, "So you're asking me about service and support and performance when you're not performing? You're a great bloke." What do I call him? John? Not his real name,
Bill,
John?
Dave.
Bill? You're a great bloke, John. But that's pretty funny, and you must see the humour in that. So that's my rant for the month. That's the end of Home Loan Hacks episode 8. We've gone out with a bang. Thanks so much, Shane, again for today. Cracking episode. Filmed in one go. We're out.